Good morning. I will now call the October 26th San Diego County Board of Supervisors regular meeting to order. Let me ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. I'd like to note for the record that Supervisor Lawson-Remer is participating via teleconference. As such, all votes will be handled by a roll call vote. With that, I will now call the roll. Supervisor Anderson. Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Here.
Supervisor Desmond.
Here.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Vargas here.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher here. First on the agenda is non-agendized public communication. It's an opportunity for the public to address the board on matters that are within our jurisdiction but are not on today's agenda. The only action the board may take is a referral to Chief Administrative Officer. Reminder, according to Rule 4A, members of the public who are non-English speaking and need interpretation assistance will be allotted additional time for translation. According to the county rules of procedure, we will hear from up to 5 in-person speakers and 5 virtual speakers. Any remaining requests for non-agendized public communication will be heard at the conclusion of our agenda today. I'll ask the clerk at this point to call forward up to 5 in-person and 5 virtual speakers.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 19 total requests to speak, 4 in person and 15 by phone. For those that have requested to speak via phone, if you could please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We will begin with the in-person speakers. As your name is called, if you could please come forward and stand against the east wall under the murals until it is your turn to speak. You'll then have 2 minutes to address the board, and I would like to invite forward the following individuals: Bryant Rumba, Robert German, Consuelo, and Audra. And if you could please state your name before beginning your comments.
Okay, sounds good, man. Hey everybody, Bryant Rumbaugh. So, obviously the reason why I've been coming here and talking and actually to all these boards of supervisors meetings and city councils is because I'm a concerned American. And I know that, at this point, I understand how the game is played with the campaign financing and how generating dollars, especially here in a campaign season, is certainly a task that's a worthy, it's a formidable task at this point with how expensive campaigns are. And ultimately, I do not understand why we haven't kind of adopted a new system. I kind of found it funny outside. You guys actually still have a pretty much a pay telephone, a pay phone, pretty much dating back to pretty much the 80s. And it's still sitting outside. That thing's pretty much an antique. The reason why that thing went the way of the dinosaurs is because we no longer need it. We've advanced. And ultimately, what I want to do is see fair competition and more or less removal of barriers to entry for other citizens. I'm not a big fan of career politicians. At this point in history, when you ask your average individual what they think of a politician, they will not be looking at you very kindly. They have a very negative aspect of it, okay? And ultimately, we need to change that. And I definitely can say that if you guys were to choose moving forward that you want to be held to a higher standard, it would only benefit you in the eyes of the public. And, I know there's a couple of you guys that are up for re-election or election, and, feel free to debate the people that you're running against. The citizens would like to see that as well. Thank you for your time.
Hi, Robert Gurman. I took these videos March 5th of 2020 at the San Diego Regional Airport Authority meeting. I started taking pictures at 7, I was in the lobby, at 7:36 in the morning, and at 8:20, they were still stacked up. 65 minutes of airliners sitting there idling, being non-efficient, non-productive, and burning fuel. They don't turn them off and start them up again. I took 2 of them. Yeah, and so actually they were adding to them. And this is a perfect example of why we need a 2-runway airport. When the runways are separated far enough, and I'm sure Supervisor Desmond can add more of his expertise to this, you can operate both runways separately. It's almost like having 2 airports. 1 tower, 2 runways. With 1 one-way, this was what you get. And when I pointed it out in the lobby to the people that were milling around before the meeting, they just glanced at it and said, oh yeah, that's just the way it is. I came from a career in truck driving. with perishable goods. If we had this many trucks stacked up, 19, if we had this many trucks stacked up waiting to leave the yard, we would have the office empty with the shirts down in the yard finding out what the hell was going on. But see, I came from private industry. This is taxpayers' money. I'm sure the airliners don't appreciate this, but where are they going to go? They're not going to say anything. In my mind, it's almost like the king has no clothes. Nobody wants to say anything. And so I'm trying to bring this to your attention because I see this and I talk to people all the time. I talked to a commercial pilot after I saw this. He says, yeah, well, you know, Lindbergh is not too well regarded in the aviation industry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Consuelo, keep on, for the people at home watching, San Diego County, listen, keep on defending freedom. We may be the last generation which has the possibility to rebel. And if you don't rebel, there may be no more chances. Humanity can be reduced to a robot-like existence. So rebel while there is still time. Remember, we are in their house playing their game by their rules, on their court. Now ask yourself, are we going to win by playing on their court? Are we going to advance playing by their rules? Are we going to escape slavery by abiding by their tyrannical requests? The answer is no. Never will we ever advance as a species under their rule. They try to fit everyone in a left-wing or right-wing box because they know you cannot think outside their paradigm. Keep on defending freedom. Freedom is the absence of a ruling class. You cannot be free and have someone that rules over you. They are complete opposites. Therefore, freedom can only be obtained by removing the people claiming to be above you. There is no other way to be free than freeing ourselves from the ruling class. As long as there are people that can dictate what you can or cannot do, you will always be enslaved by them. No matter how many privileges they allow you to have, there is no such thing as a good or righteous ruling class, because the very foundation of ruling over someone is to dominate them. Our psyche has been captured. They're playing the people against each other to control, exploit, and distract us from the real problem, the system that they have created. Keep on defending.
Thank you. Your time is up.
And last call for Audra. We will now hear from those that have requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted and you'll hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I'd like to remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking, and we will begin with our first caller. Again, if you could please state your name before beginning your comments.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. This is KB Strange, District 5. As I listened to item 20 yesterday at the Board of Supervisors, I realized that the item was responding to the litigation against opioid manufacturing companies. The implication seemed to be that opioid manufacturers created the demand for drugs that has been translated into death due to fentanyl. While this allegation has some validity, it's short-sighted and could interfere with putting into place good solutions that can work. The county needs to examine drug-seeking behaviors, like those that we see in the pharmacy. Typically, drug-seeking behavior begins early on in the teen years. Teens are discovering that alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana are short-term solutions for anxiety, depression, and the daily challenges that we all face. So let me suggest that county funding and solutions be put into two places. First, the educational system. Certainly in previous board meetings, decisions were made to partner with the educational system to teach youth about the negative effects of drugs. This is one way. Another powerful step is to eliminate the commercialization of these three drugs, alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana, by shrinking their footprint in our county. I suggest that these two things, the educational system and elimination of commercialization, would go a long way to safeguard our youth. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Good morning, Chair Fletcher and Board of Supervisors. My name is Becky Rapp. I'm a public health educator concerned with the lack of prevention messaging regarding the marijuana industry. It seems the marijuana industry has the ear of the county, as every policy that moves forward seems to benefit those profiting. Many local doctors working on the front lines of the mental health crisis have stated their concerns, along with new current studies that point to the detrimental harms high-potency marijuana can have, especially on the developing brain. Information that should not be ignored. An article posted in the LA Times last week titled, "New Details Show Sprawling Web of Corruption in Southern California Cannabis Licensing." The article described how California lawmakers called for a statewide task force to crack down on corruption. Details are emerging in a bribery scandal and pay-to-play schemes. The counties that have been investigated are the Inland Empire, San Gabriel Valley, and Southwest Los Angeles County. The article goes on to describe that in some instances, government officials took on dual roles as lobbyists or consultants for pot interests. In fact, more than a dozen government officials statewide have received income ranging from thousands of dollars to hundreds of thousands of dollars from marijuana companies, or they had interest in the pot business while still in office. In no way am I saying that our county is involved in backyard transactions with the marijuana industry, but it is curious as to why the ordinance is being pushed forward so radically. Community voices, along with local healthcare professionals, seem to be ignored. Perhaps putting the ordinance on hold would send a message that you are listening and taking all precautions. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Hume. I'm the Educational Director and founder of CleanersForKids.org. And we're asking you again to please protect our children, families, air, water, pollinators, and wildlife from toxic pesticides. As you know, the U.S. only bans 15 pesticides. China bans 51, and the EU bans 175 pesticides. Toxic pesticides are being used here in San Diego County that are toxic and harming people and harming me. So, for example, we've asked repeatedly, stop leasing to West Coast tomato growers that is using pesticides banned in other countries. I was poisoned because the county decided to lease parkland to West Coast tomato growers. Please do not do that. They've had also worker violations and had to pay $1 million in 2019 because of their actions to workers. So please don't do that. Also, we are very concerned about the Waterscape program. Please do not incentivize landscape companies to use toxic pesticides banned in other countries that are toxic to mammals and aquatic life, as has been done. We have photos and videos showing examples of where the county's program, where landscapers were paid back, they used toxic pesticides. The grass is all burned near storm drains, etc. So please do not incentivize the use of toxic pesticides. We've got a lot of examples on our website, Team 5 on Cleaners for Kids, and examples of policy. For example, the city of Malibu has an earth-friendly management policy, and we're actually up here now and getting ready to award them because of what they're doing for their integrated pest management policy that does not allow pesticides. The state of New York does not allow any pesticides on playgrounds. Hawaii does not allow any herbicides on school campuses. We have videos of how-tos, right? And a video also on Cleaners for Kids Team 5
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to the next caller.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Mary Davis. Okay, Oliver Twist. Hi. Oliver Twist here. So first, a brief acknowledgement and remembrance, which I should have done yesterday for the anniversary of the Cedar Fire, where 15 lives were lost in the firestorm, including one firefighter. So I am also very grateful to the county for moving forward with the firefighter memorial. Now for today's meeting, I feel compelled to bring attention to and to call out the continual gaslighting that goes on in this chamber by some of you supervisors as you sit there with straight faces trying to pull the wool over the public's eyes. First, there was Nathan's chastisement in July, mocking people calling in virtually to speak against continued teleconferencing under relaxed standards for you, the members, because virtual participation was already codified and allowed for we, the people, under your own Rule 4C. I previously called on Nathan Fletcher to apologize for mocking the public, and not so much for speaking incorrectly, but for that condescension, and I'm still waiting for that apology. Then there was yesterday's comment along the lines of, we didn't require the vaccine, nor did we put into place anything that required anyone else to do it. Let me again refer you back to the meeting of October 5th, 2021 and November 2nd, where you voted to impose this on new hires. You may want to memory hold that fact, but you actually voted to impose the vaccine mandate not once, but twice. Also yesterday, Nora's chastisement of people about ignorance and misinformation when it comes to our porous borders and the flow of fentanyl. Asking for the border to be better controlled is not an affront to Mexico, but simply a reality for our region for the safety of all. Lastly, I will end by saying a big thank you to Tara today for acting with integrity and participating with a live screenshot of yourself. Your actions are noticed and appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go to our final caller for the morning session.
Hi, Paul Hinton. You claim a 3.4% unemployment rate, or claimed at one time. That is a number to be envied, but don't get too smug. I hope that the alleged 96.6% who are apparently employed are in good full-time jobs making at least minimum wage. I doubt it. But I wonder, does this figure include the unemployed or only those actively seeking employment? At one time it was defined as people unemployed for less than 2 months. To see if this is still true, I looked at several definitions. Bureau of Labor Statistics counts unemployed as they were not employed during the survey reference week, but available for work during that week unless ill. Unless temporarily laid off and expecting to be recalled to their job, they must have made an active effort to find a job during the 4 weeks before. People waiting to start a job have actively looked for a job within the last 4 weeks. They're unemployed. Otherwise, they're not in the labor force. Economic Policy Institute. The share of workers in the labor force who do not currently have a job but are actively looking for work. People who have not looked for work in the past 4 weeks are not included in this measure. It is important to keep in mind that the rate measures the percent of unemployed job seekers in the labor force, the sum of employed and unemployed persons, not the entire population. Therefore, 30.4% is good, but it does not represent the jobless or legally low wages.
Thank you. Your time is up. For the remaining callers that requested to speak on a matter not listed on the agenda, if you could please hang up and call back at the conclusion of the session. Chair Fletcher, that concludes the request for non-agenda public communication this morning.
Next on our agenda is approval of the statement of proceedings minutes for the regular meeting of October 12th, 2022. I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Motion by myself, second by Vice Chair Vargas. Please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Supervisor Anderson. Aye. Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas. And Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present voting aye.
We'll now proceed with the formation of our consent calendar. Members of the public will be able to comment on any item after supervisors have had the opportunity to form the consent calendar. I'll start with Supervisor Anderson. Any items you wish pulled or comments you wish to make?
Not at this time, thank you.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
No, thank you.
Supervisor Desmond.
Nothing to pull, but a comment on item 4. I'd like to thank our Department of Public Works. I often hear from our constituents about the need for better sidewalks in the unincorporated area. We've got a lot of roads in the unincorporated area and not a lot of curb and sidewalks. So really want to call out Fallbrook, Borrego Springs, North County Metro, Valley Center, Lake San Marcos, all getting newer sidewalks. So thank you very much. I appreciate that, and thanks for all the staff's hard work. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you, Supervisor Desmond. Vice Chair Vargas.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to speak on 2 items, item number 2 and number 4. I wanted to say thank you to our Parks and Rec team for all of their work, especially in phase 2 of the Sweetwater Bike Park project. Particularly, I wanted to say thank you because the great response that they had. The county's adding a permanent ADA accessible restroom and a new parking lot to allow easier access to the park. And the restroom and parking lot will help make this bike park much more accessible to all of our residents. So I'm really looking forward to that taking place, and it's going to be completed in 2023, so that's a really exciting timeline. And then item number 4, I want to say thank you to the DPW staff for bringing this item forward. I appreciate all the work that all of you are doing to identify the sidewalks and curbs that will be repaired and replaced. Really important for my district. A lot of the residents of my community have uplifted some of those needs, so I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm happy to second that motion.
Thank you, Vice Chair. We have a motion by Supervisor Desmond, seconded by Vice Chair Vargas. Let's hear from our public speakers.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We did have 2 total requests to speak on items on the consent calendar. No one in person, but we did have 2 individuals requesting to speak by phone. For any members of the public that did request to speak on items on the consent calendar, if you could please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. And we'll just give them a moment to call in. We will now hear from those that requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted and you'll hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments. After the beep, I'd like to remind the callers they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. And we will begin with our first caller.
Truth. Item 1 is again the county's new local roadway safety plan that was written by the technocratic types on the Traffic Advisory Committee, such as Joel's appointee, Justin Schlafly. It's not about safety. It's about an intelligent transportation system integrated into the roadway network to communicate to automated connected vehicles. Smart cars for stupid people who will have their freedom of mobility controlled. And the plan includes implementing the federal government's Department of Transportation's Complete Streets checklist, which means changes such as lowering speed limits, adding more bike lanes, narrowing car lanes, extending curbs, adding extra crosswalks, always stop signs, and installing roundabouts in order to make it frustrating for people to drive. Item 2, this bike park at the Sweetwater Regional Park in Bonita sounds pretty fun with all the tracks. Are there ramps or grind bars, though? I just wonder how a $1.9 million bike park could have been built without a permanent restroom. Also, what an expensive restroom at $1.5+ million, almost the same cost as the entire park. And item 4, at least $1 million will be spent for repair and replacement of sidewalks, curbs, and gutters in the unincorporated areas at 177 locations. What is this, a backlog of repairs? That's a lot. I hope it all really gets fixed. The only issue I read in this item is when it talks about sidewalks as the primary mode of transportation. First, sidewalks don't transport anybody. They're not escalators. Second, people in the unincorporated areas aren't walking, they're driving. Also, as far as the item sustainability statement, we can throw its regional decarbonization framework into those repaired gutters with the stormwater slush. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Audra. Yeah, speak it truth. So the whole number one, you guys just want to de-incentivize people to drive, which we know is your plan, which is so ridiculous because all you're going to do is, like she was saying, put all-way stops, slow speeds, make one-way roads. I mean, you might as well go to 25 miles an hour. It's probably going to be 15, who knows? And you're just going to make people wait. This whole number two, I mean, what kind of a bathroom are you guys building? 185 square foot prefabricated building for $2 million. That's $10,810.81 per square feet. And I don't understand how it's going to cost you like that much money, $480,000 to, do reviews and get permits for this bathroom. I'm just wondering, does this have gold like your other, psychiatric units that cost, millions of dollars per bed? This was what I was talking about yesterday. You guys love to spend money on stuff that is totally outrageous. I mean, there was already a bathroom, and now you're adding another one that's basically made of gold, or maybe it's crickets, I'm not sure. And then you want to, do this guardrail stuff, but you have to design it and, do an environmental review and inspection for $450,000. That doesn't make any sense. If it's a project that's already in place. And number four, you just want to make more room for walking. And 177 locations, I'm just wondering if that $1 million is going to cover all of that. Or you do have your 151 high priority ones, but are you guys even going to complete that? Is this just another way to funnel more money? Regardless, people don't want to walk everywhere. Like the fact that you guys think that we want to walk and take public transit everywhere, you've got another thing coming. You guys don't even do that. So once you start doing that, maybe you can ask other people to do it because you can.
Thank you. Your time is up. And Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on items on the consent calendar.
Thank you. We have a motion by Supervisor Desmond, seconded by Vice Chair Vargas. Please call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas. And Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present voting aye.
We'll go to our first agenda item today, item 5, notice public hearing, appeal of the Escondido Estates tentative map and administrative permit. I'll turn it over to staff for their presentation.
Good morning, Chair Fletcher and supervisors. I'm Juliet Orozco with Planning and Development Services. Today, Ashley Smith and I will be presenting on item number 5, the appeal of the Escondido Estates tentative map and administrative permit. On July 22, 2022, the Planning Commission approved the Escondido Estates project. The Planning Commission's approval of the project is being appealed by Coast Law Group on behalf of the Coastal Environmental Rights Foundation. The department is before you today recommending denial of the appeal and upholding the approval of the project. The project site is located southeast of the intersection of San Pasqual Valley Road, or State Route 78, and Idaho Avenue in the North County Metropolitan Subregional Plan area, approximately 1,500 feet east of the City of Escondido boundary and about 2.25 miles east of Interstate I-15. The project site is 10.23 acres in size and is currently vacant. The general plan allows for a total of 20 dwellings on the site. The property is bordered by single-family residences, nurseries, a private school and church, and vacant land. The project proposes to subdivide the site into 20 single-family residential lots. The project proposes lots smaller than the minimum half-acre lot size in order to consolidate the development footprint on the least environmentally sensitive portions of the site. An on-site retention basin, shown in blue, is proposed to treat stormwater runoff, and an on-site 1.43-acre biological open space easement, shown in green, is proposed to preserve sensitive biological resources. Access to the project will be from a single private road connected to Idaho Avenue to the north. The site is a suitable location for the proposed housing because it is consistent with the general plan, within a quarter mile of the City of Escondido, and is within 2.5 miles of transit, including the Escondido Transit Center, and is located within an infill area based on county vehicle miles traveled or VMT, guidelines. The project is consistent with the goals and policies of the general plan and has been reviewed for compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. The project will also improve Idaho Avenue and add pedestrian infrastructure near the project site, including sidewalks. Access to the project will be from a single private road connected to Idaho Avenue to the north. The project is conditioned to include sustainability features such as solar panels on each home, indoor and outdoor water reduction measures, energy-efficient appliances, tankless gas or electric water heaters, rain barrels, and other sustainable construction and operation features. The Coast Law Group, on behalf of the Coastal Environmental Rights Foundation, filed an appeal of the Planning Commission's approval based on 3 primary topics: compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, and water quality. The appeal states that the analysis fails to adequately assess the project's transportation impacts as required by CEQA, and that the general plan EIR did not analyze VMT impacts and should not be able to tier off that analysis. An environmental evaluation has been completed for the project as documented in the 15183 CEQA exemption. The project qualifies for an exemption because it is consistent with the development density in the general plan and the EIR. Furthermore, a project-specific VMT analysis was conducted and found that no new impacts, increase in level of impact, or cumulative impacts were identified subsequent to what was analyzed and identified in the general plan EIR. The project was submitted in 2020 and was held up during the process based on the updated VMT guidance from the state. In order to move forward, the project applicant chose to prepare their own VMT analysis and not wait for the board to adopt VMT guidelines. The project relied on its location within an infill area to address VMT, which is defined as an area having higher populations, more road intersections, and are closer to jobs. Infill areas were directed by the board and were formally adopted as part of a new TSG on September 28th. This streamlined projects located within these areas, allowing them to move forward without VMT analysis or mitigation. As a result, the project's analysis is consistent with the VMT guidelines adopted by the board and is ready to move forward. This slide shows the project's location within the board-approved infill area, within close proximity to the City of Escondido and transit, including the Escondido Transit Center, which is approximately 2.5 miles from the site. If the project were under the land jurisdiction of the City of Escondido, they would use the same regional average VMT as the county, but Escondido's small project VMT threshold is 200 average daily trips, compared to the 110 average daily trips for the unincorporated area of the county. This means the project would be below the Escondido average daily trip threshold and would be identified as a small project that would be exempt from VMT analysis if it were in the City of Escondido instead of in the unincorporated area. The appeal states that the project does not comply with the requirements of the state-issued stormwater permit and the county's best management practices, or BMP, design manual, and would result in increased stormwater runoff and pollution. The project has prepared both a stormwater and drainage analysis and demonstrated that the project complies with both state stormwater requirements and BMP design manual that would not result in stormwater runoff or drainage impacts because the project would install a basin at the southwest corner of the site that will capture and treat stormwater runoff. The basin would be vegetated and landscaped and would prevent erosion and stormwater pollution. The appellant also filed a complaint with the San Diego Regional Water Quality Control Board regarding the stormwater analysis prepared for the project. The complaint is regarding the feasibility of treating stormwater that flows off Idaho Avenue. Stormwater currently flows into the site through the culvert in the proposed biological open space area. A new culvert will likely require permits from the state, which are conditions of the project's approval. Staff met with the regional board staff and explained the stormwater analysis prepared for the project and explained that to avoid biological impacts, the project would not install stormwater treatment facilities within the open space area and would instead treat stormwater coming into the site from the east, which includes a larger area to compensate for the reduction in stormwater treatment on the west side, which is allowed under the state's stormwater permit. Staff also committed to working with the regional board staff during final engineering to determine if there are alternative stormwater treatment options that could occur on site.
On July 22nd, 2022, the Planning Commission voted 7-0 to approve the project. The project is not within an area within a community, planning, or sponsor group. The board can take one of the following options on the appeal of the project. The board can deny the appeal and uphold the Planning Commission's approval, which found the project in conformance with CEQA and approved the project. Or the board can grant the appeal and deny the project. If the board selects this option, staff requests the board provide the basis for the denial, and staff will return to the board in November with written findings for the board's adoption. Or the board can send the project back to staff for additional environmental analysis, preparation of an environmental impact report, or provide specific direction regarding any of the issues raised in the appeal. Because the project complies with the general plan and CEQA and has addressed the concerns raised in the appeal, staff recommends the board approve the project, deny the appeal, and take the following actions. Deny the appeal based on the analysis provided in the board letter and attachment B, adopt the environmental findings included in attachment A, uphold the Planning Commission's decision to approve the project, make the findings, and impose the requirements and conditions included in the form of decision, and require the applicant to enter into an agreement to defend and indemnify the county in accordance with County Code Section 86.201 in the amount of $750,000 and authorize the Director of PDS to execute the agreement. This concludes staff's presentation, and we're available for questions.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you all for the prepresentation. This is Supervisor Anderson's district supervisor. Would you like to make comments now, or you want to hear from the applicants and public speakers first? It's entirely your choice.
I'm happy to.
Want to wait? Okay. We'll come back to you first when we come back. Let me ask the clerk to call forward our public speakers on this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 4 total requests to speak and 1 group presentation. 4 requests to speak are coming via phone. We will start, any of the members of the public that have requested to speak on this item by phone, if you could please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. But we will begin with the group presentation. You will have 10 minutes to address the board. All 3 members of the group must speak during that 10 minutes. Please regulate your time with the timer on the podium. As a reminder, each person in the group may speak for no more than 4 minutes. As you come forward, please state your name at the podium before you begin your presentation. I'd like to invite forward the first group presentation that includes the following individuals: Keegan, Oscar, and Ivar.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Keegan McNamara, and I just wanted to do a quick introduction. My partner is Oscar Uranga, and one of our investors here, Ivar, is going to be ceding his time to Oscar and I for the presentation. Oscar and I are passionate.
You won't be able, you can't defer your time.
Oh, but we can share the 10 minutes, correct?
Yes, correct.
So Ivar just has to say something, and then we can, okay. All right. He'll introduce himself as well. So I just want to say Oscar and I share many of the values, we think, of the group that has appealed us. We are both environmentalists, we're outdoorsmen, we're surfers. We take great pride in developing projects that take consideration to the community and the environment. And we think that this is, frankly, a great project that should be a case study for how infill can be done in the county. We all know that we're in a housing crisis. The maximum lots we can do here is 20, and that's due to the zoning which we're following, but also due to the fact that there's no sewer. We're on septic here. I will say we are exploring increasing density using the new ADU rules on our 20 lots. I will let Oscar dive into the more technical aspects of this appeal, as staff has already talked about, but I do want to address the indemnification amount. Late in the process, we were required to sign this indemnification agreement, but we don't agree with the $750,000. We ask that you consider a reasonable amount that is proportionate to the complexity of this project and the issues that are being challenged, specifically TSG and infiltration, which again, we believe are non-issues. We recommend an amount of $150,000, and we appreciate your consideration in reducing that amount. Without it, this is a small project. $750,000 is a substantial amount of money that really, projects like this are required to post that type of bond. It limits property rights to large developers, public home builders, and the ultra-rich. So we have investors here, and this is not part of our budget, frankly. So I just ask again that that bond amount be reduced to $150,000. And with that, I'll hand it over to Oscar.
I'll go really quick, Chair. Thank you for your time and consideration. I just wanted to tackle the two big issues that Coast Law Group has raised. The first is really a mobility and land use issue. In their letter, they claim that we are low density and create a VMT impact, and that is just flat out wrong. We're not low density. We're the highest density that we can get. We didn't leave one lot off the table. We maximized it, 20 lots. We also don't create a VMT impact. We're in a designated transit infill area. We screen out of having to do a VMT analysis altogether. We're putting housing exactly where this board told us to, in an infill designation. 4 years ago, we saw that coming, and so we're putting it there. It seems the CLG would have us scrap 4 years of work and wait for the upcoming sustainable land use framework, which sounds awesome, but we've been at this for 4 years, and no amount of planning documents are going to bring sewer to this area. The city of Escondido would have to treat sewer. Someone would have to fund, design, and install a lift station. I know I've spent the last 5 months looking into this topic, and it's not straightforward. 4 years ago, we set out to stay within the confines of the general plan and zoning. We think we've done that. We wanted to effectuate our property rights. We wanted to stay out of discretion and stay in our lane. We wanted to honor the community's plan. We think we've done that. The other issue that they've raised is infiltration. We hired a very senior geotechnical engineer to do exploration work on our property. He did exploration. He found rock, granite, bedrock. Categorically does not infiltrate, and a reasonable person would stop there. CLG says, oh, you didn't check a box. Okay. If it's okay with you, we'd like to condition the project to go ahead and spend the money and try to put a straw through rock to put this to bed. It's not going to infiltrate. But if you want us to just spend more money and do that, that's fine. Condition us to do so. I just want to close with, I'm really proud of all the work we've put into this project. We've poured our own money, our hearts and souls into this. We've done a lot of outreach. I could get into the design, but in short, we've met wonderful neighbors. We've dedicated the western part of the property to open space. There's good planning baked into our plan. We're going to name one of the streets after the neighbor, Mr. Ray Bosch, who couldn't be here today. His family had farmed this land, this whole area 100 years ago. We have gone through this process with care, and we've tried to stay within our lane. I hope that you take that into consideration and condition the project to infiltrate, and we'd love you to relieve us of the $750,000 bond amount. That's it. That concludes our presentation. We're available for questions.
We need to hear from the third speaker. Group presentations are 3 speakers. We got to hear from all 3 of you. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ivar Lietma, and I'm an investor in this project. I've also been a practicing attorney here for since 1986, and I've done real estate construction, real estate environmental law, and I've had the opportunity to address a lot of bodies like this and talk about and advise on all sorts of development issues. So what really struck me out on this project was that it was necessary. We were building it at a time, everybody knows about the housing crunch. And we're trying to do the right thing every step of the way. And it's really disheartening and a pain to have groups like the law group, Coastal Law Group, and I don't want to throw stones or anything, but, and this isn't a new story, but it's really making us jump through a bunch more hoops, which is okay if it's necessary, but a lot of this isn't. And to say that the whole project isn't valid is just, it goes all against all the evidence piled up in the other direction, in our side. And the last point I want to make is that I really think hard about not investing in San Diego projects. And I'm not the only one because of all this kind of stuff that's gone on. So I certainly very respectfully request that you deny the appeal and grant the project. Next.
Thank you. We will now hear from those that requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. Again, I'd like to remind the callers they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking, and we will begin with our first caller.
Hello, my name is Michael Schonefeld. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm the Land Use Council for Escondido Estates. Thank you. We appreciate the work with staff on this project. I'm going to be quick because I only have 2 minutes, but we're here on an unlikely CEQA appeal. CEQA is driven by significant evidence. The substantial evidence in the record supporting the county's development and adoption of its VMT thresholds is a matter of record. We want to adopt that record, the record of the September 28, 2022 traffic study guidelines, because that has evidence relevant to the analysis used on this project. As I noted in my letter to you guys, August 25th letter, we want to emphasize that the streamlined CEQA process, which staff and the county itself invoked, drives this project, and that section is supposed to rely on the general plan EIR, and therefore target only potentially significant impacts that are peculiar to the project and the project site. No such peculiar impacts were called out anywhere in the record. And for that reason alone, the VMT thresholds don't apply here. I want to comment briefly again on the indemnity, picking up on what Keegan had said. We have no issues with indemnities. They're standard, but the bonds are not standard in the state of California. And $750 bond, excuse me, $750,000 bond will tie up so much capital for this small project that it could very likely render this project completely infeasible. I want to call you guys your attention to the Housing Accountability Act, Government Code 65589.5, which applies here. And that would preclude any such conditions that render a project infeasible or any denial unless there's preponderance of evidence in the record of a specific adverse impact, which means a quantifiable, direct, and unavoidable impact based on objective, identified, written public health or safety standards, policies, or conditions as they existed on the date the application was deemed complete. No such evidence is in this record. So I urge you, please, to give relief on.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to the next caller. Thank you.
Good morning, Supervisors. Livia Borak-Bowden on behalf of Coastal Law Group, representing the appellant, Coastal Environmental Rights Foundation. The basis for our appeal is in the written documentation, so I just want to touch briefly on a few points. There is a specific peculiar project, a significant impact here. Because the project is located in an infill area that has a VMT per capita that is above the regional mean minus 15%. The board adopted the transportation study guidelines with a quantitative threshold of significance. That was 85% of the regional mean. This project does not meet that standard. Instead, it relies on the infill exemption that the board approved last month, and that does not have substantial evidence to support a finding of insignificance. It directly contradicts the OPNR technical advisory, and the project doesn't have the density to support future transit. The evidence in the record
I have no objection to adopting the evidentiary record for the TSG, because in this record or that record, there is no substantial evidence to support a finding of insignificance. And I would just say to the water quality impacts, we'll work with the regional board and with the county to make sure that the project complies with the MS4 permit. It's not simply checking a box, it's complying with the Clean Water Act. This project is basically exactly why we opposed the infill exemption without a project-specific analysis. Thank you for your time, and I hope that you deny the project and approve the appeal.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
I use the name Audra. Oh my gosh, you guys. I don't feel like we're building to get people in homes. You're building for the future way of life that you guys are trying to enforce onto people. I mean, because you condition projects to include things that are extra and aren't even environmentally friendly. So everything you do is contradictory, basically. But, I mean, these people have, whether or not you pass this, you're getting us in densely populated areas. That is a fact. But I feel like these people are jumping through hoops to do what you guys want them to do, and then it just keeps changing. And now you want them to spend, $750,000 for security on that. I totally agree that should be reduced way more than, even $100,000. It's like you guys all of these projects, I just don't feel like if you wanted people to be in homes, you wouldn't set up all these roadblocks and be like, you have to change this as we change our, climate with things, so to speak. You are making them adapt with that, and then it pushes the project out. It's been 4 years. Nothing you guys do is in a matter of, getting housing for people. So if you really cared about that, just like if you cared about fentanyl being gone, you close the border. You guys don't ever want to get to the root of the problem. You just want to dictate all these things to keep projects from going forward. And if this isn't infill, I don't know what is, because it's dense as a motherfucker. And you guys quit making people jump through so many hoops. That's why we need less government, and to go back to the basics where you could just go build your house or go build whatever you want and not have to worry about all these new projects having to comply with your stupid environment stuff that is toxic to the environment. You're contradictory to your own frickin' crap.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Good morning, Supervisors. This is Madison Coleman, policy advocate with Climate Action Campaign, calling in to oppose the Escondido Estates development as currently proposed. We're in the midst of a climate and affordable housing crisis that must be solved concurrently. The county must prioritize high-density infill development near current and future mobility hubs to slash GHG emissions from the transportation sector and reduce VMT. Escondido, in particular, has a dire need for affordable housing and is one of only 2 cities in the region with no affordable housing production requirements. In fact, the city's 5th cycle housing element shows that Escondido has only developed 13.5% of its very low-income RHNA requirements, 17% for low income, and 15% for moderate income, but 119% for above market rate housing. Unfortunately, the Escondido Estates development, as proposed, does not take this into account. The project density and lack of affordable housing does not support future expansion of transit or reduce VMT. The project is also in a TAZ that will result in increased regional VMT and does not meet the threshold of 85% of the regional average. The county's own memorandum acknowledges even in areas where high-quality transit already exists, projects with low density or excess parking may still have a significant VMT impact. We recommend that you oppose the staff recommendation and approve the appeal. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you, and we'll go to the next caller.
Truth. All right, 20 single-family homes near Escondido. Let's celebrate room to breathe away from stack and pack. the walnut woodland habitat will be fine. But of course, we have spoilers called the Coastal Environmental Rights Foundation, who are trying to squeeze these homes out of existence with new Secor reports, vehicle miles travel fees, and a water quality report. Anything they can make up to block single-family homes. First president is Bruce Resnick, who served as the head of the San Diego Housing Federation, where he promoted high-density stack and pack prison block housing. SURF's co-founder is Marco Gonzalez. SURF is represented by Coast Law Group, which was co-founded by that same self-proclaimed activist attorney, Marco Gonzalez. He's representing himself. Coast Law Group has sued the city of Encinitas, trying to get over 1,100 stack and packs built along Highway 101 and 14 other areas. Nora and Jim, they didn't get the memo about not building near greenhouse gas emitting highways. It is hard to follow the sustainability cult. But that nonsense lawsuit cost Encinitas almost $500,000 in legal fees. Marco Gonzalez's associations include Progressive San Diego, the Sierra Club, the San Diego Affordable Housing Coalition, and the Environmental Health Coalition that just got $14,000 from these supervisors yesterday. We have a conflict of interest as usual. So none of you supervisors can ethically vote yes and approve an appeal on this item because you're all entangled like these frivolous environmental lawsuits. You've been caught.
Thank you. And with that, Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on this item. And I'd also like to note for the record that we did not receive any e-comments on this item.
Thank you. Let's go to Supervisor Anderson.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. I'd like staff's recommendation. I'd like to make that in a motion, but I would like to change the amount of the indemnification to $350,000. I went back and looked over the last 2 years over all the projects we've had. This is 20 units, but Rugged Solar just this year was $500,000, and it was much more involved. If you went to look at the Skyline Senior Housing, that was in 2020, it was 232 units, and that was $350,000. When you go through and you look, that dollar amount is more consistent with what we've done based on risk. The other part is this is a developer that followed all the rules, did everything, met the VMT, did everything that we set out for them, and we should have faith in our guidelines. While these guidelines haven't been tested in court, we passed them, and we should stand by them, or else we haven't done a good job. KA Shell, their appeal, that gas station, was in 2020, it was $350,000. The types of projects that have been $750,000 are huge projects. You know, when you look at the Otay Ranch Village 14, where you had almost 1,300 homes, that was $1 million. But these are huge projects. Let me look for a 750. The Otay 250, that was 3,100 units. That was only $750,000. So, you know, comparing 20 units to 3,000 units, it just doesn't seem like that's a fair amount. So I'd like to make that one adjustment in, but you know what, before I do that, perhaps staff could explain why those projects were 350 and why this one shouldn't be 350 and why much bigger projects were at the same dollar amount.
Yeah, let's go to council and get an explanation, because I know some are lower. We've seen one's million, 1.25, but maybe you can walk us through why we came to that. The second thing, staff, if you could walk through how this process works. It's kind of a drawdown on whatever the actual costs end up being, and not a check that has to be written day one. But if you could walk us through all that, that'd be helpful.
Sure. Supervisors, under County Code Section 86201, we require defense and indemnity from the applicants. What we do is typically require a defense and indemnity agreement, and in that agreement we require security to be posted. So day one they have to go out and get the security to back what that financial obligation is that we outline in these approvals. And those are, the amount is set at the discretion of the board. So just from the outset, that amount is set at the discretion of the board. What our office does as county council is we look at past awards, attorney fees, we look at the scope of the project, the issues that are raised by the project opponents, and who are the project opponents, whether they're well organized or they're represented by legal counsel. And then we also look at recent attorney fees and attorney awards. And if you look at the past attorney awards in CEQA-related cases, those in the past 5 years and inside the county have been increasing in attorney's fees. So we look at similar types of projects. We look at the scope of the project, and you're right, this is a smaller project with 20 units, but the complexity of the issues that are being raised are under CEQA, which require attorney's fees to be paid if you're on the losing end. And this is a new and novel issue under CEQA with VMT that could be kind of an extensive litigation cost. The applicant is required, so they pay as the case would go on. So we would send them a bill periodically, and if they fail to pay that bill over time, then we would pull those bonds or pull a security. And so they do pay it over time. I don't remember a time in the last 10 years where we've actually had to pull a bond to pay those attorney's fees, but that's what the safeguard is there for. And so we make that recommendation, and just to cap it, the board's under purview to change that to whatever amount they see fit.
So part of the reason this may be higher than other housing projects in the past is it's a whole new area of law. We've got VMT issues, we've got infill issues, we've got CEQA issues, and the costs have gone up considerably than in the past, which is why this as a residential unit would be higher than some we've seen in the past.
That was based on our recommendation, yes.
Okay. Supervisor Anderson, I'll go back to you, and you can solidify a motion to your preference and choice. Look, I'm inclined to deny the appeal and approve the project. There is some uncertainty around infill as it relates, and at some point we need to resolve that and get some guidance. But I am greatly concerned with doing so if we're going to lower the amount, because again, the cost of this I don't believe should be borne by the taxpayers. And I think County Council's done a good analysis in an uncertain area. The applicants aren't going to have to pay beyond what the actual costs are going to be. And so at where it's presently set, I'm comfortable with it. If it's a prerogative of the board to lower that, then they can do that, but they'll be doing that without my support. Supervisor Anderson, back to you for your motion.
Thank you. The concern I have is that if we put it this high, we're signaling that we don't have any faith in the guidance that we've given to people, that we're telling people they need not apply, because even if they've done everything right, even if they've complied in every way, shape, and form that we've asked them, we're still going to use this as an excuse not to build anything. When I got elected, there were 18,000 roughly homes that would be turnkey in my district. Through our policies of tightening up the policies to meet the VMT, to do all the things that we've said, we've reduced my district to fewer than 600 homes. And now we're going to take another 20. We already heard from them that this is like the straw that will break the camel's back. We know that this stuff is going to be tested in court, but we wrote that policy. If they varied from the policy that we wrote, then I would say absolutely. But they followed the policy completely. And that's why I don't think it's fair that all of a sudden now we're tripling or doubling what we've charged in the past. And when you look at the large developments that have gone on, yes, the most we've requested is 1.25 million, but we're talking about thousands of units, not 20. And I get the principles are the same in the lawsuit, but we're telling all small infill developers, we're not going to be there for you, so you're really going it alone. So I get your point. I don't think that taxpayers should bear the burden, but we should have faith in our own documents, and we should have faith. So I would like to accept as a motion, accept the recommendation, but I would like to see it at 350,000 instead of 700.
Okay, but you're making the motion. So is
Right.
the motion to accept the staff recommendation to 750? Is your motion to change the staff recommendation to 300?
To 350.
Okay, that's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Supervisor Desmond, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Chair. Excuse me. And thank you, everyone, for the presentation today. We need more housing. And this project actually maximizes the density of the site while still remaining consistent with the general plan. And it's a good project. It's proposing exactly what was anticipated at this location. And I agree with the Planning Commission's unanimous approval of the project, and I'll be voting to deny the appeal today. But I agree with Supervisor Anderson. They jumped through all the hoops. They did everything we asked them to do. And by lowering the number 350, they complied with all of our rules. And I understand we don't want the taxpayers to bear the burden of extra costs beyond that if there's a lawsuit. But housing costs just keep going up. And government can't get out of the way sometimes. And we keep adding more and more things that increase the cost of housing. I think this is a great example of a project moving forward, following all our rules. And I think it's penalizing at the 750. So I seconded the motion and support the 350 proposed by Supervisor Anderson. Thank you very much.
Vice Chair Vargas.
I just need clarification because I think in item number, let's see, the Department of Planning and Development Services on page number 3, it says to provide security in the amount of $750 in the form of irrevocable letter of credit or bond, right? And so this is a number that staff is recommending based on a lot of assessment and work that you've done to really try to protect the county as well, as we're really trying to make sure that we do create more housing, but there is a lot of new components into this. And so technically comparing other lawsuits to this lawsuit is comparing apples to oranges because they're two different sort of what the laws that were in place before and what we're dealing with now is completely different, right? I mean, am I understanding that right?
Supervisor Vargas, that's accurate. I mean, this is a new issue under CEQA, which hasn't seen much litigation, so there's a potential that could, drive some of the litigation costs up for defense.
Okay, so I'm not going to support your motion, Supervisor Anderson, but I'm happy to make a motion to support staff recommendations.
We have a motion and a second on the table, so we have to resolve that first. Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
I would actually, my line of question was very similar to my colleagues, Vice Chair Vargas. I think we have to acknowledge that by deviating from OPR guidance, we've, that puts us in a riskier legal situation. I think, obviously I'm very supportive of affordable housing. I'd like to support staff's recommendation today. I'd like to move forward with this project, but I would be pretty uncomfortable to lower the bond amount.
We can vote on the one on the table. That's y'all's preference.
Let's
then we'll
go
vote.
ahead and do it, and if we have to change it, we'll change it. So
we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
No.
Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas. Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, no.
That motion fails with Supervisor Anderson and Supervisor Desmond voting aye, all those supervisors being present voting no.
So I'm happy to make a motion now to accept staff recommendation.
Second. Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas. Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present voting aye.
We're going to go to item 6, notice of public hearing, measure to explore the establishment of a cannabis license program with options for cannabis facility operation certification fee. We'll give staff a moment to get reset and turn it over to them for their presentation.
Good morning, Chair Fletcher and Board. I'm Vince Nicoletti with Planning and Development Services, also known as PDS. I'm joined by Connor McGee, also with PDS, as well as Stacy Smith of the Sheriff's Department. Today we're presenting options to transition the existing cannabis licensing program from the Sheriff's Department to PDS. Currently, there are 5 cannabis facilities operating in the unincorporated area. Since 2010, the Sheriff's Department has issued annual licenses for the 5 facilities as they opened. These facilities are the only cannabis dispensaries currently allowed to operate in the unincorporated areas of the county and are considered non-conforming or grandfathered facilities while the socially equitable cannabis program is developed. On October 6, 2021, the board directed updates to the existing cannabis regulations to allow the existing 5 locations to expand operations to adult use or recreational sales, add non-retail cannabis activities such as cultivation or distribution, and to add new owners or sell the businesses. On May 24, 2022, the board directed the CAO to explore the establishment of cannabis licensing program to be managed by PDS code compliance rather than managed by law enforcement, and returned to the board with options for cannabis facility operations certificate fee. Based on our analysis, staff from PDS and the Sheriff's Department believe PDS can take over this program, providing the same quality of work. The 5 existing cannabis facilities are shown on the map. 1 is in Valley Center, 3 are in Ramona, and 1 is in unincorporated El Cajon. In January of 2021, the board directed staff to develop a new cannabis regulations for the unincorporated county, allowing for a variety of cannabis business activities known as the Socially Equitable Cannabis Program. Today's action is independent from that larger socially equitable cannabis program and would impact only the 5 existing dispensaries. In order to facilitate a timely return to the board today, no significant other changes to the current cannabis regulations are proposed as part of today's action. Additional changes to the licensing program and regulatory code will be developed as part of the wider socially equitable cannabis program anticipated to be completed in 2024. Cannabis facility licensing is composed of 3 basic elements: administrative tasks, background checks, and safety and security inspections. The administrative tasks include application review, data entry, and operating certificate issuance. The background check confirms an applicant does not have a felony conviction. Routine safety and security inspections involve verification of infrastructure requirements, operating requirements, and record-keeping requirements. This slide shows how cannabis licensing is currently implemented by the Sheriff's Department and how it would be managed by PDS. Application review and administrative tasks are currently conducted by the Sheriff's licensing specialists. PDS would utilize a similar job class, land use technician, for application review and administrative tasks. Background checks are also completed by Sheriff licensing specialists and could be completed by land use technicians within PDS. Safety and security inspections are presently conducted by the Sheriff's Department licensing specialists and 2 plainclothes sheriff deputies on a quarterly basis with additional unannounced inspections. PDS would utilize 2 code enforcement officers for the quarterly and unannounced inspections. PDS code enforcement officers are already inspecting and enforcing county code for unpermitted cannabis dispensaries, along with a wide variety of other land use regulations. Staff see no concerns with the transition to also inspect licensed cannabis facilities. Additional resources will be required as the program develops and the socially equitable cannabis program is implemented. Those resources will be included in proposed future operational plans along with county budgets. Today's action also includes new fees for cannabis licensing. For existing dispensaries, there's presently only an annual license fee. To allow dispensaries to modify operations or change ownership, there's also a proposed business practice modification fee to add new non-retail cannabis activities, as well as a fee for business ownership modification. The current sheriff's fee for an annual license is $49,460. On May 24th, the Sheriff's Department proposed to create a renewal fee of $27,371, along with inclusion of 2 new fees to allow for expansion and ownership changes. Those changes were not implemented at the time, and staff were directed to analyze transitioning the program to PDS. If the program were to shift to PDS, the annual license renewal fee would be $16,673, with a business practice modification fee of $4,781, and a business ownership modification at $1,211. While the PDS fees would be lower, the quality of work would not be diminished. I'll now turn it over to Connor McGee to discuss how other agencies manage cannabis licensing, share stakeholder feedback, and present options for board consideration.
As part of our best practice research, staff contacted local agencies to examine how they operate their cannabis licensing programs. We got feedback from the cities of San Diego, Vista, and Oceanside. In our research, we found that license renewal fees ranged from $8,870 to $20,802. Inspections ranged from 1 to 3 times per year. Background checks are currently required by the San Diego County Code of Regulatory Ordinances, and we found that other jurisdictions also conduct background checks. To perform the background checks, we would be using LiveScan, which is the standard practice amongst other jurisdictions. To conduct the actual background checks, the Sheriff's Department currently uses both LiveScan and the California Law Enforcement Telecommunications System, or CLETS. Most local cannabis licensing programs and the State Department of Cannabis Control only utilize LiveScan for background checks. PDS proposes to use LiveScan only, as it does provide the discerning information for the issuance of licenses. We found that most jurisdictions use land use staff to lead their cannabis licensing program. As part of the more comprehensive socially equitable cannabis program, staff will review best practices beyond local jurisdictions, including other California and national cannabis licensing programs. Staff will also conduct public outreach to gather stakeholder input on the future program. County staff also have conducted stakeholder engagement among key stakeholder groups, which included the existing 5 dispensaries, community planning and sponsor groups, the San Diego County Cannabis Stakeholders Group, the Farm Bureau, and labor groups. Comments from the existing 5 dispensary operators were related to the desire for a refund for previously paid fees and the difference in the annual renewal fee and inspection frequency should PDS take over the program. The community planning and sponsor group chairs did not have specific comments regarding this action. However, there was interest in the status of the overall socially equitable cannabis program as a whole. Today's action includes options to transfer cannabis licensing to PDS and options to retain portions of cannabis licensing with the Sheriff's Department. All A options represent ongoing Sheriff's Department involvement. All B options represent where PDS would take over the licensing program. Options 2A and 2B discuss options for which department manages the licensing program. Options 3A and 3B discuss options for background checks. If option 3 is selected, this would include the passage of a resolution authorizing PDS to access LiveScan. Option 4A and 4B discuss options for the routine safety and security inspections. Based on our analysis, best practices review, and stakeholder input, staff recommends the board select PDS to operate the entire cannabis licensing program. To accomplish this, we would recommend the board select options 2B, 3B, and 4B. Option 2B includes authorization for the Sheriff's Department to process prorated refunds to the 5 existing dispensaries. If the board selects 2B to transition the program to PDS, but also selects a combination of 3A or 3A for the sheriff to do background checks or field inspections, the result would be a hybrid approach that would require the Sheriff's Department to prepare a fee for their role in 3A or 4A and return to the board with those new fees. The 5 existing dispensaries have requested a refund of fees already paid to the sheriff this year if the board selects the option to transition the cannabis licensing program to PDS. In response, staff will include a recommendation in the second reading of this item on November the 16th to authorize the sheriff to refund the difference between the existing fee amount dispensaries have already paid and the new PDS annual renewal fee. The refund will be prorated for the period between enactment of the new fee and expiration of the annual fee period. To implement staff's recommendation to transfer the program to PDS, amendments to the regulatory ordinance and administrative ordinance will be required. These ordinance changes include adding PDS as a licensing entity in the regulatory ordinance and replacing reference to the Sheriff's Department. Fees for the PDS-led program would be added to the administrative ordinance. This concludes staff presentation on this agenda item. Staff from both PDS and the Sheriff's Department are available for questions.
Great, thank you. Let's hear from our public speakers, and then we'll come back to the board.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 20 total requests to speak, one individual in person, and 19 requesting to speak by phone. I would also like to note for the record, we received 3 e-comments on this item. None were in favor, 2 were in opposition, and 1 was neutral. Any members of the public that has requested to speak on this item by phone, if you could please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. And we will begin with the in-person speaker. I'd like to invite forward Austin Birch. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board, and if you could please state your name before beginning your comments for the audio record.
Good morning, Supervisors. Austin Birch with ALTCO. We've worked closely with both entities in the last nearly a decade. We just wanted to give our support for the transition to PDS and appreciate your time in looking at this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear from those that requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I'd like to remind the callers again, they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking, and we will begin with our first caller.
Good morning. I am Diane Grace, a mother, grandmother who has worked tirelessly on many youth-oriented boards. As I have considered item 6, and I feel that transferring oversight of marijuana businesses to the county's planning department from the sheriff's office is highly problematic. At a minimum, marijuana businesses, such as storefronts, lounges, manufacturing, and grows are extremely controversial, so need the highest available oversight, which would definitely be the sheriff. Oversight of marijuana business and grows would be too daunting for the planning department. The level and frequency of complaints around state-permitted hemp grows in the unincorporated areas already demonstrate how chaotic and dangerous dealing with hemp businesses are. Just this week, the discontent with the planning department came up at the planning group I attend regularly. A smelly and noisy hemp grow that is ruining neighbors' enjoyment of their property. It seems a more appropriate agency to handle this escalating and probably dangerous problem from the start would be the sheriff's office, not the planning department staff. Most important, sheriff oversight would show the county's commitment to transparency in all its dealings with marijuana businesses. This is especially important now when the LA Times has been revealing the years of deceit and payoff by marijuana business to elected officials throughout California. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller. We can hear you. You can go ahead and begin your comments. We'll go to the next caller.
Good morning, Board. Kathleen Lippert here. I'd like to share a recent study done by the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They reported their attempts to deal with the exploitation of the 2018 Farm Bill that declassified hemp as a Schedule I drug substance. The problem is that prior to this bill, the mere presence of THC was enough to declare the product of hemp as marijuana if it contained any THC. Today, law enforcement, confiscated products, and crime laboratories must figure out how to differentiate seized cannabis samples as either hemp or marijuana, despite a lack of reliable methods to do so, particularly at the 0.03% threshold that they put in place. Of the 53 hemp samples tested, They declared the products, 49 were incorrectly labeled and did have THC. Once again, the industry has shown it is not willing to play by any rules, no matter how reasonable. The result is that it continues to drain public resources. At the same time, the state and the county continue to support this industry. The study question author asked, where does the new law leave us? Why is that question even asked? Who is supposed to be in charge here? I think we all have come to the conclusion we know the reason. We know the answer to that question. It is the marijuana industry. It is the dog wagging it, the tail wagging the dog. And I hope that the county will consider how this hemp industry is already draining the water resources that they should not have access to, groundwater, which the unincorporated communities depend on. And having the planning department take over will not ameliorate this situation.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to the next caller.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors and staff. My name is John Bodorf with CleanEarthForKids.org. Please vote to keep the cannabis licensing program under the Sheriff's Department. We oppose any recreational cannabis. Research clearly shows cannabis and THC products are marketed directly at youth, especially youth of color. Just like the tobacco industry, the goal of the cannabis industry is to create lifelong customers through addiction. The average THC content in cannabis in the U.S. is 14 to 16% compared to 2 to 3% a few decades ago. This was done intentionally by the industry to increase addiction. Those in favor of recreational cannabis talk about jobs and profits and equity, not about addiction. I personally know people addicted to cannabis and have seen the destruction to their lives. This is not about medical use. This is about a multi-billion-dollar industry's attempt to make money at the expense of people's health. We are not talking about selling books or shirts. We are talking about selling a drug that is known to cause birth defects, reproductive problems, increased cancer risk, and numerous mental and emotional disorders. There is clear evidence that the use of cannabis is not harmless. This is not about equity. This is addiction for profit, the same arguments made by big tobacco. This is about greed of an industry that does not care who gets hurt as long as they make money. Please put people before profit. If you want to help those hurt by the criminalization of cannabis, find ways to help them without exploiting and addicting our youth. Please protect the youth and people of San Diego and vote no to any licensing of recreational cannabis and keep the current licensing under law enforcement. Thank you from CleanEarthForKids.org.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Barbara Gordon. Thank you for letting me speak. I urge the Board of Supervisors to adopt option 2A to maintain existing cannabis license program by the Sheriff's Department, as well as 3A, that they will conduct the background, as well as authorizing the Sheriff to conduct necessary safety, security, and compliance inspections. This oversight by the Sheriff is critical for public safety. The health disparities that have resulted from decades of predatory marketing strategy by the marijuana industry that has specifically targeted our communities, including aggressive advertising and promotion, all of which have promoted and integrated marijuana into the culture. Indeed, the marijuana industry continues to co-opt the social equity movement, civic organizations, and leaders to garner their influence to lobby against less restrictions and prohibition. These efforts have resulted in the marijuana industry's case by promoting the claims that prohibiting marijuana would lead to increased law enforcement activity against marginal communities. Taken together, the marijuana industry's deliberate efforts to maximize their profits and ignore public health risks. Again, I urge the board to maintain existing cannabis licensing to be managed by the Sheriff's Department. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Hey, my name is Anthony Avalos. I'm a fourth-generation San Diegan, resident of District 3, and direct descendant of the war on drugs. I'm also a founding member of the Council of Equity Advocacy in San Diego, and I'm speaking on behalf of the San Diego Cannabis Stakeholders Group. I want to first thank and provide support to the Board of Supervisors for taking this progressive and necessary step towards building a socially equitable cannabis program by approving the establishment of a cannabis licensing program that's managed by the Planning Development Services. The CSG is also supportive of all staff recommendations to, one, transfer the licensing cannabis program to PDS, two, authorize PDS to acquire a background check system and conduct required background checks, and three, authorize the PDS to conduct all necessary safety, security, and compliance inspections. As a direct descendant of the war on drugs, I cannot overstate the impact that both the San Diego Police and San Diego Sheriff's Department have had on not just me, but my family and my community. For us to be moving in any type of socially equitable way, we have to keep in mind those that were most impacted. You are doing that. You're going in the right direction, and I applaud this move. Thank you so much for this work. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Joe Everstein, and I'm the Program Manager for the San Diego County Marijuana Prevention Initiative. It seems ironic that we are discussing marijuana business licensing as the county struggles with historically high numbers of overdoses. The sheriff have done an outstanding job in the marijuana licensing arena. They have become experts in the licensing process. I hope that any change includes any transfer of knowledge and continued communication and coordination with the sheriff to the new agency in charge. I also hope that proactive actions are taken around public health, minor access, and operations that look into underage availability. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Good morning. My name is Suzanne Hume. I'm the Educational Director and founder of CleanEarthForKids.org. The licensing program should not be under the Planning Department. This is just a step for further expansion of recreational marijuana. This is the marijuana playbook. Look how they do it. We must put children's health and future above marijuana profits and deny any expansion of recreational marijuana in San Diego County, because marijuana, Delta-9, THC, and marijuana smoke are California Prop 65. We should not be promoting anything that's Prop 65, chemicals known to cause cancer, birth defects, and other reproductive harm. Delta-9 THC can pass through the placenta in 10 minutes and do permanent harm to a child's brain. Harm to the brain impacts every aspect of a child's life, their ability to learn and thrive. We cannot expand recreational marijuana and the resulting marijuana smoke. Instead, we must protect children, women, infants, people with pre-existing conditions, cancer, lung conditions, asthma, and people with COVID-19. Everyone needs clean air to breathe. Marijuana smoke is Prop 65. There is no safe level of secondhand smoke. It travels through doorways, walls, electric lines, and third-hand smoke comes through the hands of smokers after 40 to 60 minutes. Toxic chemicals. The word equity continues to be used, and it really hurts. Equity at the most basic level should include a healthy environment free of the harms and impacts of marijuana and marijuana smoke for all children, pregnant women, people with pre-existing conditions, cancer, diseases, lung conditions. We need to be free of the harms and impacts of marijuana and marijuana smoke. So that is the basic level of equity. Please do not allow the licensing program to be under the Planning Department. It's just not safe. We need to protect our kids, their ability to learn, and their future. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Oliver Twist here. First, a brief acknowledgement and I'm sorry about the wrong one. Oliver Twist here. First, I want to thank your county staff, including Julia Orozco and Vincent Galletti, for audibly introducing themselves at the start of their presentations. I appreciate their efforts in increasing accessibility and reducing ableism. For the record now, I want to state my position that I am absolutely against legalized cannabis the way the program is implemented now. The program as currently run is like the Wild West, an industry that runs loosey-goosey, inviting crime and money laundering. So I do not support transferring oversight from the Sheriff's Department to the Planning and Development Services. It would be one thing if low or mid-grade THC was sold either over-the-counter or behind glass cases at your local Rite Aid. But as things stand now, these satellite operations bring a nefarious element to surrounding communities, the negative effects of which are seldom properly mitigated. I am also greatly concerned about the ever-increasing levels of THC in marijuana products. This isn't your grandpa's Woodstock pot or even your dad's Doobie Brother joints. Aside from potency concerns, there is also the expanded type of delivery systems, including topicals, concentrates, and edibles, all of which pose a dire poisoning risk to children. Additionally, the link between marijuana and schizophrenia is well documented, as frequently detailed by the outstanding group of lady advocates whom I greatly admire, who call in almost to every meeting to warn of the dangers of marijuana. Aside from all of these concerns, I'm calling in today also because your program does not go far enough in oversight or regulation when it comes to fiscal oversight and auditing. I heard from a source that these operations bring in around $30,000 a day, and owner-operators are frequently armed due to the high propensity for being targeted for robbery. Given this cash cow industry, I feel it needs far more oversight and dedicated resources on the financial back end to ensure accountability. Please increase financial and public safety oversight for this industry and do not transfer it.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to the next caller.
Janice Luna, District 1. Hello, thank you for the opportunity to speak, supervisors. I am a resident of District 1, also a mother and grandmother, community organizer, and member of the Behavioral Health Advisory Board representing District 1. And my concern for our community has been the lack of addressing the equity or what our community has experienced as far as trauma in regards to the war on drugs and other oppressive practices that impact our community. And so knowing that in communities of color and communities of concern, there is a navigation, whether you're for cannabis or not, to navigate out of the school to prison pipeline. So moving in this direction is more comprehensive, holistic, and trauma-informed, as we're seeing more of the practices that the county is taking on, prioritizing community mental health, behavioral health, and acknowledging that there has been some wrongs, some systems that are no longer serving the community. And so this change is going in the right direction. I believe there will be a lot more education that will need to be implemented, a lot more community outreach to really get the feedback of those that have been harmed in our communities by oppressive practices, and the war on drugs being one of them. The school to prison pipeline, that has been something that has affected us and is still affected our communities that are under-resourced and continuously experiencing trauma and lack of resources. So thank you for this shift in power, and we'll be in touch as far as the community and getting feedback, and as well as having conversations with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Use the name Audra. So the problem is that you guys are exploiting these businesses because it's controversial and it is legal, but you're like the mafia that wants to come in and make money off of it because they're making a lot of money. And, if you really wanted to do something about it, you would ensure that, these businesses can run, but in a proper way without overly, excessively paying them for things just because of the subject matter. And the fact that there's been expressed concerns about law enforcement, being in charge of that because they are biased. I mean, I don't think that they need to be. The sheriff's department is involved in every aspect of our lives, but they're not doing what they're actually took an oath to do, which is to, protect the people. They would rather do the bidding of the Board of Supervisors because you guys are in their pocket. And you guys want to talk about worrying about, harms to people. I mean, vaccines and masks cause cancer. Marijuana actually shuts off the cells of cancer. So if you use that, you could actually help more people instead of trying to dictate things in their lives. You guys make it so that people have to go into the black market. You don't make it feasible. This isn't socially equitable with other businesses. You're using the fact that it's a controversial subject matter to overly tax them and give them fees and licensing fees. We need less government involved in our lives. We don't need more. The fact is you guys have to have your hands in every pocket of everybody so that you can gain money off of it and, make yourselves seemingly look good. But you don't, and you need to stop being in everybody's business like this. It's quite ridiculous, and literally you're forcing people into the black market, and that's your fucking fault.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Good morning. Sarah Fletcher on Board of Supervisors. My name is Becky Rapp, and I'm a public health educator. I am deeply concerned with the lack of research gathered from local healthcare officials, doctors, and public health professionals. It seems staff is only listening to the industry, who are in the business for profit, not for good health practices. Transferring the entire licensing program to ESP would be detrimental. It's lowering accountability and transparency. Refunding any previous fees is saying, oops, we're sorry for charging you so much. In what other industry has the county allowed for refunds to prior contracts to be returned? Past contracts with the sheriff's office should be upheld, and businesses required to pay any and all past fees. The sheriff's department should be allowed to continue oversight when dealing with the marijuana industry. Progressive steps are not necessary. Patience, caution, and deep consideration is of the utmost importance. Please deny this item. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
This is Joel Weisberger. I'm the chair of the San Diego County Farm Bureau's Cannabis Working Group. Black market cannabis operators thrive in areas where legal operators cannot enter the market. In order to ensure the legal cannabis market can survive, it is imperative to keep barriers to entry as low as possible. The goal of the Farm Bureau is to allow cannabis to be a viable commodity for San Diego farmers to grow in order to offset the lost profits due to increasing water prices and loss of farmland. In order to ensure San Diego farmers have this opportunity, it is critical to keep upfront costs as low as possible. Because traditional lending is not available, most farmers would have to accept risky financing terms from predatory lenders, which is not desirable. We believe that having the PDS office oversee cannabis licensing and regulation is the most appropriate and cost-effective way for the county to regulate the cannabis industry. The sheriff's office doesn't regulate alcohol. Why would they regulate cannabis? There is no need to burden the sheriff's department with regulatory responsibility for an industry that has yet to live up to the negative stereotypes and lies predicted early on. In fact, most licensed cannabis businesses in the state operate in compliance of the law with no issues. And to date, not even one of the 5 licensed cannabis businesses in the county have had any major disciplinary action taken against them, further suggesting that cannabis operators just want to conduct legal business. We would support option 3A, 2B, and 4B. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Truth. Here we have a socially socialist, equitable marijuana program being developed, copying radical Oakland. The item says developing the license and permit requirements will include stakeholder involvement. So clearly, big money friends are involved. The marijuana facility operation certificate fee alone costs over $37,000, plus 2 different modification fees. Now we have either the Sheriff's Department and or the Planning and Development Services going to charge more fees for licensing renewal, background checks, and safety, security, and compliance inspection fees for these facilities on top of all of that. Option 2A, licensing by the sheriffs will be about a $50,000 fee. Option 2B, licensing by the PDS will be an over $16,000 fee. Option 3A, background checks by PDS will be an over $16,000 fee. Option 3B, background checks by the sheriffs will be an over $16,000 fee. Option 4A, inspections by PDS will be an over $5,000 fee. Option 4B, inspections by the sheriffs will be an over $16,000 fee. Tens of thousands of dollars in fees. At this point, I'm actually going to copy what I've heard Audra say before about people just being done with these census permits and licenses and just grow your own plants for free. On another note, it's no surprise that the radicals disguising themselves as community stakeholders want the sheriffs out of the picture as much as possible. Let me use the old line of maybe they have something to hide. You want equity across the board? Then have checks and inspections done by the sheriffs. Everybody play by the same rules.
I'm greatly concerned that this is smoke and mirrors. This is why people don't trust us, because we make up arbitrary rules that don't lead to better outcomes.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. This is Ann Riddle, parent advocate. As parents have taken a look at this proposal, we have to firmly say that we want the oversight of marijuana businesses to remain with the sheriff. The sheriff have developed protocols and relationships and understand what's involved. I also concur with a previous speaker who pointed out how difficult it is to know what's being grown, whether it's a hemp plant or a marijuana plant, and that they look the same. So without really comprehensive lab work, you're not going to know. You know, we recognize in the parent community that 90% of all drug use, and that includes marijuana, begins before the age of 18. In fact, first age of use is 12. This is a highly potent product we're talking about here. It's controversial. Listen to the comments you're hearing. This needs to remain under the sheriff's jurisdiction. For the sake of transparency, this is not the time to look like we are taking what the marijuana industry wants, which is for it to transfer the planning department. That alone makes it a little suspicious. I wonder if we want to be a little more sensitive to the amount of media that's being reported about this pay-to-play that's going on in California. And let's stay above all of that here in our county and make sure the sheriff continues providing the oversight and the permitting for our marijuana businesses, particularly since what's coming down the road are very controversial things like more marijuana grows in the unincorporated area and all the problems that that will bring. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Good morning. This is Jim Whalen from J. Whalen Associates. I'll be brief. I support staff's position, but I have two inquiries, perhaps for staff. When will we be seeing the results of the social equity assessment? And the second question is, when does staff believe that the public outreach will be beginning? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Chairman Fletcher, Honorable Board, this is Ren Bowden, owner of Jack's Cannabis. Wanted to call and speak in support. We had a very, very thoughtful, thorough discussion with Planning Development Services. I am very confident that they are well equipped to take over the process here. They understand the process. They definitely wanted to know our needs, and they definitely wanted to understand the challenges that we faced in the past. I am more than confident that they are ready, willing, and able to take over this process. I speak in support, And also, I am very much in support of taking a look at the current fees that were paid and the refunds. Thank you so much for your time and appreciate your time on the matter.
Thank you. And Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Vince. I want to thank you and your team for moving quickly to get this done. We obviously spent some time as a board on this as related to the Sheriff's Department. I fully support moving this from the Sheriff's Department to PDS as we move forward as a county with creating a safe, regulated, and legal framework. This is entirely appropriate that it be handled in PDS just like we handle other things that are out there. And so I'm going to make a motion to approve recommendation 1 related to CEQA and then recommend 2B, 3B, and 4B. And I appreciate the work around the prorated nature of individuals who already paid will be transitioned in order to get refunds back in place. Reality is we need the Sheriff's Department to focus on what they do, which is keeping us safe. We want them to continue to focus on cracking down on illegal and unlicensed cannabis operations in the unincorporated area. And we want to provide a reliable business process permit in a way that is consistent with other things that we do out there. And so I think this is another positive step forward and appreciate how quickly we've got this done and how fast we've moved. So the motion will be recommendations 1, 2B, 3B, and 4B. And we have a second by Vice Chair Vargas. Let's go to Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question that's primarily for staff, primarily concerning the Farm Bureau letter that they sent us all. Was they had preferred that the keep the background checks with the sheriffs, but then do everything else with PDS. Is the background check is it the same that PDS is going to be carrying out, or is it same level of scrutiny, or what's the difference between PDS doing it or the sheriff's doing it?
Through the chair, Supervisor, PDS would be using LiveScan, the same system that the sheriff currently uses, which gives us the discerning information on whether or not to issue a license. The sheriff does presently have access to the CLET system, the California Law Enforcement Telecommunication System, that provides additional information on individuals, but it's not a discerning factor in terms of the issuance of a cannabis license under our regulatory code.
So you'll be doing just as good a job as the sheriffs did. Okay, that's what I wanted to clear up. And although I've been and remain opposed to marijuana dispensaries in the unincorporated area, you know, marijuana in my mind is still a gateway drug. And I know we're fighting the fentanyl deaths throughout the county. And Sandag's own information shows that about 90% of the fentanyl deaths are people who first used marijuana. So I do believe it's a gateway drug. However, today the action before us is giving the, I guess, the licensing and oversight to PDS, which I think you can do a fine job or just as good of a job as the Sheriff's Department. We have a shortage of the number of law enforcement people here in San Diego County, and if we can free them up to do other tasks, I'll be voting in favor of the moving it to PDS, but my position on marijuana and as a gateway drug remains. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Yeah, just a couple thoughts. First of all, I really just want to thank staff because this was really creative and excellent work by Vince Nicoletti and Brent Panas and the rest of the team. So thanks really for all your work on this. You know, what really struck me is that by moving this program from sheriff to PDS, we're reducing the costs imposed on businesses in our community from nearly $50,000 a year to less than $17,000 a year. So when we're getting great service for less than a third of the cost, I think we're absolutely going in the right direction. This is what we need to be doing across the board, and we're going to still be able to follow through on all the same protocols for licensing and background checks and safety. And we're also freeing up the resources within the Sheriff's Department to tend to actual work around public safety, which is, of course, their core job and really, really important for our community. So this is a win-win. Great work to the team, and thank you so much.
Thank you. We have a motion by myself, second by Vice Chair Vargas. Let me ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas. And Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present voting aye.
We will now resume non-agendized public communication.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 11 total requests to speak, all coming via phone. So I'd ask for those that requested to speak via phone, if you could please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you, and we will give you a moment to do so. We will now hear from those that requested to speak by phone. Again, when it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. Again, I'd like to remind the callers they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking, and we will begin with our first caller. Again, if you could please state your name before beginning your comments.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. This is Ann Riddle calling in for public comment. I want to share an observation that I've made over this last Red Ribbon Week. I want to commend the PTAs and their Red Ribbon Week chairs in North County who have uniformly delivered wonderful prevention messages to the families and students of our schools. And I want to thank you for your proclamation 2 weeks ago and our other cities in the North County area who issued proclamations regarding Red Ribbon Week. This standard of support, I hope we are seeing across the county. I'm assuming we are, but I'm only acquainted with what I'm seeing here in North County. I'm also very impressed with a group of seniors, high school seniors, who have been speaking to sixth grade students about their choice to have always been alcohol, tobacco, and drug-free. Another program that I hope we see, or that perhaps the county could support and fund, be extended across the entire county so that the uniformity of messages that our children are receiving are coming from their peers and coming from us as trusted adults. That it is our hope that they will not default to alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana when life gets hard for them. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
I use the name Audra. I know that ye are Abraham's seed, but ye seek to kill me, because my word hath no place in you. I speak that which I have seen with my father, and ye do what ye have seen with your father. They answered and said unto him, Abraham is our father. Jesus saith unto them, if ye were Abraham's children, ye would do the works of Abraham. But now ye seek to kill me, a man that had told you the truth, which I have heard from God. This did not Abraham. You do the deeds of your father. Then they said to him, we be not born of fornication. We have one Father, even God. Jesus said unto them, if God were your father, you would love me, for I proceeded forth and came from God. Neither I came of myself, but he sent me. Why do you not understand my speech? Even because you cannot hear my word. You are of the father of the devil, and the lust of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. And because I tell you truth, ye believe me not. Which of you convinceth me of sin? And if I say the truth, why do ye not believe me? He that is of God heareth God's words. Ye therefore hear them not, because ye are not of God.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Mike Borello, and I'll add amen to the last comment. So I have a scary report just in time for Halloween. In January of this year, Tets and Tets published a paper in the journal Microbiology. They identified the presence of a prion-like domain in the SARS-CoV-2 virus spike protein that plays a significant role in the binding strength of the ACE2 receptor, a 10 to 20-fold increase over more typical viruses. Tets and Tets concluded the prion-like domain could present a potential risk of Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, or CJD. Sure enough, in May, researchers in France confirmed the results of Tets and Tets, but went further. They determined the same Prion-like domain exists in the COVID-19 vaccine designs, all based on the Wuhan strain. The authors eventually published their work against aggressive censorship in both journals and media. Before COVID, CJD was extremely rare, only about 1 case per million per year. In Veris this morning, all U.S. vaccines over all years, 79 cases of CJD reported. 73 of those were associated with COVID-19 vaccines alone. And so in the last couple of years, and 1/3 of those reports reported symptoms within 10 days of injection. Pfizer leads the count with 60 of those cases. CJD is a variant of BSE, bovine spongiform encephalitis, popularly known as mad cow disease. Prior to COVID, you could only get it by consuming beef infected with the BSE prion. It seems, in all our wisdom, we have figured out another way. CJD is a death sentence. There's no cure. Now you want to build a multi-million-dollar laboratory. You'd better improve health by banning the vaccines.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to the next caller.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors and staff. My name is John Bodorf with cleanerforkids.org. Do you know that lead is still an aviation fuel? Jets do not use leaded fuel, but piston engine aircraft and helicopters still do. These type of planes and helicopters are responsible for 50% of airborne lead emissions in the U.S. They are the largest single source of lead pollution. According to EPA data, aircraft at Gillespie Field dumps over 1,100 pounds of lead into the air every year, with the Palomar Airport over 700 pounds of lead every year. That is not acceptable. Lead is a toxic heavy metal, and there is no safe level of lead exposure according to the World Health Organization, Centers for Disease Control, and the American Academy of Pediatrics. Lead is a cumulative poison and is especially toxic to children and unborn babies. It damages children's brains and nervous systems, lowers IQ scores, slows growth and development, harms muscle coordination, speech, language, and causes behavior problems. We ask you to stop the sale of leaded avgas at all county airports. Unleaded fuel is available, and the county must move quickly to protect the children of San Diego. Please take action and get the lead out of county airports. Please protect the kids of San Diego. Thank you from cleanerforkids.org.
Thank you. We will hear from the next caller.
Good morning. My name is Michael Hill, a concerned resident of the area. I know that the county has Measure A on the ballot that will tax marijuana businesses in the unincorporated region of the county. I support taxing the current 5 marijuana businesses. But use that tax money where you received it, in the communities where the marijuana businesses are located. I disagree that any expectation that a tax on marijuana businesses will mitigate the problem that those pot shops will contribute to regarding health and safety of our citizens already struggling from the drugs. I hope that this board and the public does not believe for 1 minute the big lie that marijuana businesses in the unincorporated areas will eliminate or reduce the black market that have been rampant there. An expose in the LA Times consistently all this year have demonstrated that the black market always increases in the areas where marijuana businesses are permitted, not decreases. The underground market in California is far too entrenched with the dealer-customer arrangement going back decades. Penalties on unpermitted marijuana businesses of misdemeanors and a $500 fine are simply too low to dissuade criminal activity. Local enforcement agencies are stymied by the lack of adjudication of unpermitted business owners. Using the black market as the reason to permit more marijuana businesses is just a smokescreen for making money off disease and addiction. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
the public's enjoyment, I want to play this comment from June 29th by Ms. Robbie Morgan. She might be my favorite member of the superhero Morgan family that I can also really relate to. So please, everyone, just enjoy this Halloween treat.
Hello, board. I am Robbie Andrea Morgan. I am the real Pug-Nosed Marissa. I have just, I'm the one who is fixing all the banks. I'm the one who's defending the country, defending the city, and finding out all these things that's going on in the city. I'm really tired. So I'm winded because I'm just tired. And so I'm just letting you know really that I'm here and that any questions that you have or you want to know, that I'm willing to give you guys information on everything that I've found. I am the real city girl. I am really city. And I'm just telling you that I'm here. That's basically all I wanted to say. Thank you. Good morning, board. I'm Robbie Morgan. I'm also the real Pug-Nosed Marissa. I have to redirect this because I was not awake. I have odd hours. I'm in the city constantly. Again, I'm going to say, if there's anything that you want to know, I've been in the city. I've been doing this for 25 years. I'm ready to come out. So anything you want to know, I pretty much have it. All the way from Bin Laden to Hussein. I also work for the president, so I've been in this.
Do you have any comments on the energy item?
Yeah, no, not out. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, how classic is that? Ready to come out, having odd hours, and being city. Please do those more so. Nathan, where are you at? You're not even here. You're not even paying attention. I can say anything I want. Come on. Look at how I'm watching.
Thank you. Your time is up, and we will go to the final caller for non-agenda public comment.
Good morning, board. Kathleen Lippitt here. It's frustrating to continually have to remind this board majority of its responsibility to the public's health and safety over the marijuana industry's interests. It's well past time to acknowledge that the biased decision to establish commercial marijuana businesses and cultivation in the unincorporated communities was not on behalf of the public good, but on behalf of the marijuana industry. Not only was the decision unprecedented and irresponsible, but the ordinance also simultaneously took away the oversight review ability of county planning groups, ignoring the constellation of harms that high THC products cause and now high THC hemp products cause. Doesn't make them go away. The county's ongoing determination to pretend the marijuana industry should be supported and not recognize that they are a significant contributing variable to all of the public health issues that you maintain, that you are struggling with. Supervisor Fletcher, in his newsletter recently, acknowledged that it hurt his heart that people were dying from fentanyl overdose and how it harmed families. Why would you not acknowledge the harm from the families who have lost loved ones to THC products? That doesn't make any sense. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you. And Vice Chair Vargas, that concludes the request for non-agenda public communication this morning.
Thank you so much. We will now resume to, oh, there you are. Turn over to you.
Thank you. That concludes the business before the board today. We will now adjourn into closed session.
The board will now recess into closed session to continue consideration of those matters listed under item 24 on yesterday's agenda, as well as item 1 on the Housing Authority agenda. If there are any reportable actions, they will be reported out after the conclusion of closed session today. Next regular meeting of the board will take place on Tuesday, November 15th, 2022.